Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the graveyard, and today I would like to present to you the Cryomancer. This is a different type of playstyle for the Necromancer because we are utilizing pretty much almost all frost abilities minus the blighted blast bones. But with that being said, definitely feel Frosty with this build, and it is a lot of fun. Of course, different from the meta, that's how this channel likes to present itself, and as my good friend Area of Effect says, out of the box type of build. Not that I'm stealing his quote or anything, but that's definitely what this build's all about. I released something like this similar in the past, and it wasn't as good before as it is now, simply because of scribing and the utilization of the different types of effects that you can put into the scribing skills. Not that it makes or breaks the build, but it definitely makes it that much more better. On top of being able to gold out some pieces that I haven't been able to mess with in quite some time. With that being said, definitely give this build a try. Tell me what you think of it at the end of the video in the comments, and what you like about it or what you would do different. So let's take a look at our stat sheet here. We are trying to maximize our max magic and max health as much as possible. With this being a frost slash cryomancer, we are doing double barred frost staff, so stamina is really not that much, really not that important. So 13k, don't be too discouraged by that. The important thing here is the max magic and the maximum health. Excuse me. Spell and physical resistance, that is the front bar unbuffed, and then of course everything else that you see here is unbuffed. 32 points into max magic, 32 points into max health. We are using the Clockwork Citrus Fillet, a little bit different than your Smoked Bear Haunch. This is just going to maximize that max magic pool, and then of course giving us the health and magic of recovery still on top of it. And then we are using the Atronach Mundus Stone, almost 400 recovery, not bad at all. Looking at our back bar stats here, unbuffed, you can see it's pretty much all the same, minus a little bit on the spell damage and weapon damage. Recovering and max stats are basically the same, but then our physical and spell resistance are definitely a little juicier before our major and minor resolve. And then fully buffed up on the back bar here, we are at 30k spell resistance and 27k physical resistance and 3800 spell damage. Now, the reason why I'm excited to show this is because we are wearing 5 pieces of light armor. So having 30,000 spell resistance before resistance flesh with 5 light armor is quite impressive. We are very tanky in a light armor setup, and we are able to sustain our magic just fine. So looking at our front bar stats here, we are just under 4k spell damage. Weapon damage, not that important, but everything else that you see is about the same minus the recovery. Spell resistance and physical resistance on the front bar, fully buffed up here. 27, 23, so still pretty tanky on the front, even on the offensive side. And then, of course, if you need to get back to the defensive side, you just go to your back bar. Like I said, double barred frost staff, so our blocking is going to cost magic. That is why we are maximizing the max magic pool and the magic of recovery. Stamina not as important. The only thing you're going to need for that is breaking free and dodge rolling. Otherwise, focus on the magic aspect of the build. Looking at a fully buffed up stat sheet here, let's just put this on, 5,000 spell damage with the frost clench there, 10,000 recovery, I'm sorry, penetration before our boneyard, and then you can see our recovery gets a little above 2,000, so super solid stats right there. Let's take a look at the skill sheet here. First up, Chilling Contingency. This is a scribe skill. This is in the Mages Guild. This is going to do AoE frost damage, and then the signature script is the Warrior's Contingent. I'm sorry, the Warrior's Opportunity. So increasing the damage of our next direct attack used within 7 seconds by 2,000, and then the affix is the Minor Intellect, Minor Endurance. I don't know if I showed that with this on. So our recoveries are actually going to go up just a little bit more. So almost 2,300 magic of recovery. Not bad at all. Unnerving Boneyard. more frost damage, and this is going to give us our minor vulnerability, major breach, which is super nice, especially because it lasts for 4.1 seconds after they leave the boneyard. And then of course if you slap this on a corpse, it's going to do 30% more damage. And then as a good group utility here, they have the ability, like your group, say you're in a 4v4, someone has the ability to still activate the Grave Robber even though this is the other morph and you can't do it anymore. Doesn't mean you still can't provide some utility to your teammates, which is frost damage. Now whether or not they benefit from one of our sets with this Grave Robber synergy, I haven't tested that yet, but there is a possibility that that could be a thing. So remote totem here, this is going to be our hard CC, and the main thing that we're running it now is just the way that Battlegrounds is designed. You're going to be benefiting by throwing this on a group of people, even if they are CC immune, only because that major cowardice really hurts and it reduces the healing, because you're going to be reducing the enemy's weapon and spell damage by 430. So with that being said, that is a powerful debuff when in regards to healing. And then when you place this on a group of people, and then you have some other people in your team just, you know, doing some burst damage, or say they put a negate on them, not only are they going to not be able to heal with their magical spells, but that 430 weapon and spell damage is going to affect their stamina heals too, so Vigor is going to be super weak. It sounded like somebody was in the boneyard here, but I guess not. Oh yeah, somebody is. I don't know what that was. Jumping into next on the list here, we are at Frost Clench. Frost Clench is going to be our immobilization. It's going to guarantee us the chilled status effect. And then while they're immobilized, we are going to apply major maim to the enemy for 5 seconds, which is pretty dramatic because reducing the damage done by 10% is a solid debuff towards the enemy. It's Will Harden. I thought I heard somebody going on in here. So this can stack with major protection, minor protection, the damage reduction you get just by slotting the Deaden Pain passive, and then of course if you have like Vampire or Nobility and Decay, all of that stuff stacks. So having major maim on the enemy, even though it's single target, is a huge help for the build, especially wearing light armor. But as you saw, the resistances weren't really that much of an issue. The important thing is the utility that this ability gives you, not necessarily the damage up front. Even though it's nice, that's not what we're looking at here. So stay tuned for the sets here and we'll see why we're running this. Blighted Blast Bones, it's our secondary burst option. You can see it only costs 900 stamina. Thankfully, we don't have to rely on stamina that much in this build. So having this is just going to give us another solid major and minor debuff system. That is Defile, reducing the enemy's healing by a total of 18%. So super strong, great burst disease damage. It's going to apply this in an area as well, reducing the group healing in general. So cast this, throw this out into a crowd of people, and all of your healing is going to be reduced by 18%. Glacial Colossus, next up on the Frost list here. Great AoE utility. This is going to apply major vulnerability and then smacking the enemy 3 times with almost a 10k tooltip. That is before being buffed up as well. And then of course this also applies to your teammates, allowing everybody to do an additional 10% damage because the enemy will have major vulnerability applied to them. Going to the back bar here, we have Resistance Flesh. Resistance Flesh is our flex spot in regards to healing. If you don't like using this, then by all means use the Scribe skill here, which is Healing Soul. Healing Soul is going to give you 3 cool effects, one being the burst heal. The signature script is Druid's Resurgence, giving you the 600 Magicka and Stamina, which is basically reducing the cost of this skill by 600, thus only making it cost about 3,700. With that being said, Major Vitality on top of it, it's going to give you 12% increased healing. That's from all resources, so healing from your teammates as well, and then of course the healing that you do for yourself. Healing Soul, this is going to, Deaden Pain, this is going to be your ultimate regeneration. This is also a nice little heal over time. It's not super strong, but it definitely helps when you have that major protection up. Once major protection is going, like I said, this will stack with your major maim. So there's 20% damage mitigation, which is already stronger than Vampire, and we're not even running Vampirism. Plus, you get the 3% damage reduced just by having it slotted on your bar, and it's free. Blockade of Frost. This is another Frost ability. This is going to do a lot of utility in one tool as well. So a small dot over time, not that big of a deal, but the big takeaway here is the fact that it gives you a damage shield from projectiles. So while you have this casted on the ground, you're going to be able to have a damage shield for you and your group members, which of course is cut in half in PvP, but it's not that big of a deal only because this lasts for the duration of the skill, and then you get it at the end as well, so you're kind of double dipping in regards to a damage shield. But the last piece here is my favorite part. Chilled enemies are afflicted with minor breach and their movement speed is reduced by 40%. Why is this important? Because Frost Clench guarantees you the chilled status effect every time you cast it on someone, not including the other ways that you can apply it from your other Frost skills. So with that being said, you know, when somebody's in this, they're going to be afflicted with chilled no matter what. So they're going to be pretty much having minor breach and the snare on them at all times, unless they cleanse it. But regardless, it's not that hard to reapply it. So it's only 2,900 magic, and it's a sweet, you know, 4-in-1 utility skill as well. Beckoning Armor, this is our secondary CC. Now the reason why I say that is because you're not always going to be able to time somebody in your remote totem. It's nice to have for the major cowardice, but the one way that you can guarantee a CC, especially on cooldown, especially for ranged players, is having this on. So it's going to give you your major and minor resolve, and then of course, while you have it active, every 2 seconds you're going to pull someone in towards you that are using ranged skills. Majority of players in the game, hashtag Sorks and Arcanists, even Nightblades for that matter, they're going to be hitting you with something ranged no matter what. Even if it's a stamina build just using a Frost Staff on the back bar, they're going to get pulled in towards you. So pretty useful to have, just because, like I said, you're not going to be able to use remote totem all times, but the main reason why we have totem is for that major cowardice. Next up, Mortal Coil. Mortal Coil is very useful only for the sense of it being able to out-heal Vigor, and some people don't understand how this heal necessarily works. So the 3% while healing done increased while slotted is not reflecting the tooltip that you see here. And then of course you're also going to be getting 170 magic and stamina back every 2 seconds. So that recovery plus the increased healing done really does more for you than Vigor does. And I wish more people understood that, because people still run Vigor thinking that it's this great heal. Yes, it's a stamina heal, but Mortal Coil's free, and it's a class skill. And Vigor, you're wasting half the skill for the minor resolve because you already get that from Beckoning Armor. So all you Necros out there, please stop using Vigor. Use Mortal Coil. Even if you line of sight it, you can try this build and you won't have to worry about that, and I'll explain why when we get to the sets. Ravenous Goliath, this is your oh shit button. This is going to give you a burst heal on top of increasing your max health by 30,000, and then of course your light attacks and your heavy attacks are going to heal you. So if you're in a situation where you're just kind of panicking and you need to, you know, get away or somehow reset the fight, then definitely pop this bad boy off and you'll save yourself 20 seconds to reset the fight and recuperate. Especially if you can get off a few heavies, you're going to give yourself the damage shield, and then healing yourself on top of it under the damage shield. It's quite nice, because the higher your health, the bigger the damage shield is. Okay, jumping into champion points here before we get into the sets. We are looking at Fighting Finesse, Master at Arms, Backstabber, and Bulwark. Red Tree, we are doing Fortified, Sustained by Suffering, Survival Instincts, and Celerity. Green Tree, Rationer, Liquid Efficiency, Steed's Blessing, Professional Upkeep. Not super important, but if you wanted to see what I was running in the Green Tree, that's what I have. Alright, moment of truth here. Let's jump into the gear. First up on our list is the Master's Perfected Ice Staff. For those that don't know, the Master's Perfected Ice Staff is quite slept on, simply for the fact that, like I showed you in the skill, it does the major maim on top of the immobilization, which is really strong because immobilization cooldown is 4 seconds versus the CC cooldown, which is 7 seconds. With this, we're running the Berserker enchant, so every 5 seconds we're going to have our increased weapon and spell damage by almost 350. It is sharpened, and then just by having it slotted, since it's the perfected version, we have 103 weapon and spell damage. Second tooltip, reduces the cost of destructive touch by 10% and increases weapon and spell damage by 600 for 4 seconds. So, as you can see, when we go over to, say, one of our test dummies here, we hit that. Look at our spell damage here, 4244, and then it goes back down to 36. And then the Berserker enchant was on there as well, so that's why it dropped even a little bit more. But that is only on a 5-second cooldown. As you can tell, as soon as we hit it again, it goes right back up. We're sitting now above 5,000 with one of our spell drafts, and then it drops back down to 3926. So a 4-second burst window, which is, you know, long enough to do what we need to do with it. And I can show you how to do that combo once we're done going through the gear pieces here. Next on the list, our second set, Nobility and Decay. This is pretty much my bread and butter for a defensive set on any Necro build. It does a lot. It's definitely something that some players don't understand. This could be your recovery set, and that is because with this, you can make yourself a corpse, thus tethering yourself, which you can either use Mystic Siphon or Mortal Coil, giving yourself big recovery bonuses. So, as you can see, max health, 4% healing taken, max health, and then the 5-piece here, casting a Bone Tyrant ability while in combat grants you Beautiful Corpse and Death's Favor for 16 seconds, making yourself the corpse and reducing your damage taken by up to 12% based on your missing health. This is super noticeable the lower health we get. It acts basically as a pseudo-vampirism, and on top of the major main that we can apply, the major protection, the minor protection, and the 3% just by having Dead in Pain slotted, we are super tanky on top of the 30k resistances that we showed in the beginning of the build video. Thus making us not only tanky, but our sustain super strong as well. Because we can make ourselves a corpse, if we jump back into the skills here, you see how we have Mortal Coil and how I said this pretty much out heals Vigor. That is because Mortal Coil's uptime is 100%. It is free, it is up 100%, and it's also going to be giving us increased 3% healing done from all of our other healing resources here, and also giving us the 170 Magicka and Stamina return. Basically just adding more recovery to our bar for free. So that is why I like this over Vigor. Please, please, please use this over Vigor. Jumping back into the gear here, first monster set, we are using Nanatuk. Nanatuk is also kind of slept on in my opinion because using the tool tip here with the Major Brittle, this is the only way to get Major Brittle in the game. You can get Minor Brittle pretty much from an infinite number of ways, but as far as Major Brittle goes, the only way to get Major Brittle in the Elder Scrolls Online is using this monster set right here, which can be acquired from Imperial City with Telvar Stones. So the one piece does almost 1500 armor, and then on dealing frost damage, which is from numerous ways, creating a 6-meter area under the target, doing a small frost dot, and then snaring them for 40% for 4 seconds. And then the important thing here is when they are damaged at least 4 times, they become immobilized, afflicted with Major Brittle, causing them to take 20% increased critical damage. So, as you could see, all we have to do is hit them with this and they're immobilized, and then they're going to take all that Nanatuk damage, including all the other ways that we apply frost damage, giving us pretty much a guaranteed Nanatuk 20% Major Brittle. So, this can affect this effect can occur every 15 seconds, and then it scales off the higher of our weapon and spell damage. That's just talking about the frost damage dot. So having this pretty much at all times is a need, because if you see here, all we have to do is cast Bone Totem, maybe like another frost dot, hit them with that, and then you can see it's probably just hit him right in the gooch, but a little hard to see with all the visual clutters. There was Nanatuk. It was right in between his legs, and somebody that gets hit with that's going to be immobilized, and they're just going to sit there and take the damage. And then, of course, if they get stunned by the totem fear, then they're definitely going to receive all of that damage. Next up, Nobility and Decay. We talked about this already. This is our back bar sets. We have the Nanatuk Epaulettes. And then our third set, this is where the build kind of shines. This is why we are considered a Cryomancer. We are running Frostbites. Frostbite is going to give you a whole bunch of damage in one set. Weapon and spell damage times 2, plus a little critical. And then the 5-piece here increases your damage done with Frost abilities by 8%. Increases your damage done against chilled enemies by 4%. Increases your damage done against enemies afflicted with minor brittle by 2%. All of these can stack. All of these can go with major brittle as well. Thus, our damage output, the lower the enemy's health gets, is just going to stack higher and higher and higher. And then, of course, our bloodthirsty jewelry helps out even more with that, because the lower the enemy's health gets, we have up to 350 weapon and spell damage times 2, and basically a built-in execute with the enchants on our jewelry here. Frostbite is going to give us so much damage output. And not only is just our frost abilities going to hit harder, but chilled enemies and enemies afflicted with minor brittle are basically going to be taking an additional 6% more damage. So all of our other damaging abilities are going to be doing 6% increased damage. Thus, Blighted Blast Bones. So this 10,000 tooltip, I've seen some people get critted for up to 14 to 15k depending on what their armor is. It hits super hard. Frostbite will still increase the damage output of our other skills that don't use frost damage, but Blast Bones is the only one, so majority of the time we're going to be doing the 14% increased damage. Alright guys, if you want to take a look at the traits here, we are running 1 light, 1 heavy, 1 light, 1 medium, light, light, light. Like I said, 5 light, 1 medium, 1 heavy. We are rocking 30k resistances. Super strong. I didn't lie to you. Here's the traits here: Impen, Reinforced, Well Fitted, Impen, Divines, Divines, Divines. And then if you wanted to hit over that 400 Magica Recovery for the Mundus, you could add 1 more Impen, but I'm sorry, 1 more Divines. But I like the Impen just to have a little bit impenetrable, just because of all of the Knife Blades out there. We don't necessarily have that much critical resistance, but having just at least 2 pieces gets me by. Alright guys, I'll see you in the graveyard. Hit me up on stream, join us on Discord, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I will see you guys in the graveyard.